All right, welcome back. Hope you're all having a great week. Today we're continuing our BCBA exam practice question series, where we're going with the next set of practice questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and most importantly, subscribe. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. We have our 3 practice exams, our task list study guide, and of course, our famous combo pack. When you do pass, please let us know so we can include you in our Sunday shout out, and we love to hear from those people who do pass their BCBA exams. We also have a YouTube membership if you'd like to support us further. Other than that, let's work hard, study hard, get right to our questions. Question 1. Jordan's designing an intervention that targets severe aggression towards siblings. Jordan can't decide what experimental design she wants to use for her intervention. What would be the experimental design you would want to recommend the least to Jordan? Experimental design questions. Remember, each different type of experimental design has advantages, has disadvantages, and some are more appropriate than others, depending on the situation. Now, even though Jordan is doing research on severe aggression, that doesn't change her priority, which is keeping the client safe. Now, what do we know about intervening on something like severe aggression? Well, we know it's very important, extremely socially valid, and if something works, what do we want to avoid doing? We want to avoid removing something that works. So, even though Jordan wants to learn more about things that work with severe aggression and find a functional relation, she needs to be very careful about implementing an intervention, decreasing aggression, and then having the urge to reverse that. You should always be thinking about that when you see severe behaviors when we start talking experimental design. So in this case, what would be the experimental design you would recommend the least to Jordan? A, multiple baseline. Multiple baseline you could do across settings, right? It might be a little slower, okay, but at least we don't have to reverse it, right? We could go across different settings and see how aggression is affected across the settings. Most importantly, we don't need to reverse it. Alternating treatment would be a good option, right? We can rapidly go between independent variables and see which one is having the best effect on this aggression. Alternating treatment would be probably a good experimental design to use in this case. What about reversal? Well, for all the reasons we just talked about, reversal is just not ideal. Because if we do accomplish our goal of reducing severe aggression, reversing that intervention just for her research is not ethical. First and foremost, we're still acting in the best interest of the client. So doing a reversal design here is putting Jordan in a very tough spot if she is successful. And then multiple probe, sure, just like multiple baseline, could be a good option, albeit a slower one, but at least you could look across multiple settings. So in this case, you're having severe aggression. What would be the experimental design you would want to recommend the least? Going to be a reversal. I got to the graduate library at the university I attend for a quiet place to study. A few days ago, while working, the power went out. Next day, the power went out again. Today, I decided to go to the coffee shop instead. Power going out serves as what? All right, we got a reinforcement and punishment question. How do we approach these? Well, first, we're going to ask ourselves, did a behavior change? And it did, right? I used to go to the library. Now I go to the coffee shop. Did my behavior increase or did it decrease? Well, the behavior of going to the library, which is the behavior that is experiencing the consequence, is decreasing. And that's very important. Okay, you need to really work hard to identify what behavior am I really looking at. Okay, now today I went to the coffee shop. We don't know what happened when I got to the coffee shop. We don't know what consequences were there. We do know when I went to the library what happened. Power went out, okay, and that decreased me going to the library. So that punished me. So we know it's a punishment. Now we have to ask ourselves, is it positive or negative? Positive meaning we're adding something. Negative meaning we're taking away. Well, in this case, I'm sitting in the library, power goes out. What happens? Well, light was removed, power was removed, I might have lost work. A number of different things could have happened because the power was taken away from me. So if it's taken away, negative, and then my going to the library behavior decreased, I chose a different place instead, I was punished, the power going out serves as negative punishment. Don't make the mistake some people studying for the exam make where they skip over the quote unquote easy stuff, the basics like reinforcement, punishment, shaping, those kind of things. everything matters on the exam, right? Because they're going to test you on everything. So treat everything with the same respect. Experimental design, stimulus equivalence, positive reinforcement. Treat them all with the same respect. You have to know it all, right? And if you get a reinforcement punishment question, that's great because that should be a simple question for you to answer. In this case, go to the library, power is removed, behavior decreases, the power going out serves as negative punishment. It is team trivia night, and the Fighting Foxes are going up against the Rowdy Rabbits. The host tells each team to pick one member to represent the team in the final round to compete for the team victory. This represents a what? So we've got a group, thinking group contingencies, right? We've got our 3 group contingencies here. Let's do all our work in the question. Let's predict our answer. Team trivia night, already said it's going to be a group contingency. The host tells team to pick one member to represent the team to compete for the team victory. Now, what does that mean to us? That means the team victory, so the team receiving the reward, is contingent upon one member. To me, this sounds like hero procedure, otherwise known as the dependent group contingency, right? So if we look at A, the independent group contingency, that's when everybody is reliant on themselves. If each member of the team had an opportunity to answer and win a prize, it would be independent. Dependent, now we're dependent on the hero, right? In this case, the one member the team picked to represent them in the final. If this member wins, they all win. An interdependent would be the whole team has to succeed to get the reward, which isn't occurring here, right? Maybe to get to the finals, it was interdependent because the whole team had to work together and succeed. But for the final team victory, there's only one member. The whole team is dependent on this one member. So this is going to represent a dependent group contingency. When conducting a task analysis, what is the most important thing to consider in identifying the steps in the task chain? All right, easy question. Easy question. Let's not overthink it. Okay, so what are we doing? Conducting a task analysis. We're breaking down a task, multiple steps, trying to establish steps we're going to teach, make a chain, and then decide how we're going to teach that chain. So when we're doing that, what is the most important thing to consider when choosing the steps? Because remember, the reason we do task analyses and we don't just teach everybody the same way is everybody's individual. Some kids learn quicker. Some kids might learn slower. Some kids know some of the steps. Some kids don't, right? I can teach toothbrushing in 5 steps, or sometimes I can teach toothbrushing in 15 steps. It doesn't matter. It just depends on my client, the learner. So with that being said, what is going to be the most important thing to consider when identifying steps? A, the child's preference assessment. Why is the child's preference assessment important in task training? Well, it's going to lead us to reinforcers, right? We'll do a preference assessment. We'll do a reinforcer assessment. But what's reinforcing isn't really the most important thing in the task chain. Okay, we can use pretty much anything to reinforce each step. That's not the vital information we need. B, who will be teaching the child? Important, right? Because we're going to have to train them. We're going to have to make sure they implement it with fidelity. But any technician should be able to teach your task chain, right? If you're supervising and training them correctly, it shouldn't really matter who's teaching the child the chain. And that's definitely not going to impact the steps. We're not going to alter steps because the technician can't teach, right? That's not what we're trying to do. C, the child's skill level. That's what we're most concerned with, right? If I'm teaching hand washing and the child has 0 motor skills, my steps are going to look a lot different than a child who maybe is a good athlete, for example. The child's skill level is going to be the most important thing to consider when picking steps in task chains. The child's age is not. The child's age will lead you down the wrong path, especially when working with people with disabilities. Age represents merely a passage of time, right? A 10-year-old looks different, A to B to C. Skill level, disabled or not, they all look different. They have all different skill levels. That's what we need to concern ourselves with. Don't get caught in the trap of looking at age and using age as your litmus test for, oh, well, I can teach them this because they're 10. You've got to really assess them well. What is their skill level? So, what is the most important thing to consider when identifying steps? C, the child's skill level. If you know a child would man for items that they can and cannot see, which of the following procedures would be an effective way to evoke manding, provide reinforcement opportunities? What are we trying to accomplish? We want to evoke mans because when we get mans, we can reinforce. Remember, you're always looking for those positive times, right? We're looking for positive moments where we can reinforce good behavior. And sometimes we have to drive that. Sometimes we have to set that up. Because the more they engage in the good behavior, the more we can reinforce, the better off we are. So we know the child can or they will man for items that they can and cannot see. So already a pretty decent mander, right? No matter if they can see or not, they'll man for it. So in that case, which is going to be an effective way to evoke manding? A, give the child a bowl of soup, no spoon. This is a very common skill to teach, right? Missing items. I have my soup. We need the child to ask for spoon. Since we know they'll man for items they cannot see, even if the spoon isn't there, we can expect them to man for it. This is a great way to incidentally teach, right? Here's your plate of food. You need a fork, you need a spoon. They need to ask. Do we pick A and move on? We don't. A looks good. Have to read all of our answer choices. You have to get in that habit. Okay, you have to. Someone a couple days ago left a comment and said the best advice they used was reading every answer choice. Okay, because it really slowed them down and forced them to break each answer choice down individually instead of just rushing through. B, the child loves being held. Pick the child up for 5 seconds, then place them back on the ground. If you've worked with little kids, you know how well this works, right? Tickling as well. Pick them up, you put them down. What do? Put their arms up, pick them up again. You tickle them. What do? Put their arms out or ask them to tickle them again, right? Very good way to evoke manding. C, pass out cookies to the child's brother and sister after dinner, but not the child, and have everyone sit at the table. All right, deprive them, okay? Establish that MO. Brother, sister have cookies. I don't. Well, to get my cookie, what do I need to do? I need to mand. And so establishing that MO by putting them in the scenario where they're the only one deprived of the cookie, great way to force him to ask for a cookie. So, A, give the child a bowl of soup, but no spoon. B, pick the child up, put him back down. And C, pass out cookies to everyone but the child and then have them sit at the table. All great ways for them to evoke mans and give you reinforcement opportunities. Answer here is D, all the above. Again, another reason we read every answer choice. You just never know. Which of the following verbal operants lack point-to-point correspondence? What do we need to know about our verbal operants? We need to know what evokes them, what reinforces them. Do they have point-to-point? Do they have formal similarity? Those are the 4 keys for our basic verbal operants. And what is point-to-point correspondence? Point-to-point correspondence is tricky to wrap your head around at first. All point-to-point correspondence says is that any verbal SD or verbal behavior has the same beginning, middle, and end as the responding verbal behavior. In other words, an echoic. If I say walk the dog, in echoic, somebody be saying walk the dog. Those two things have the same beginning, middle, and end. They have point-to-point correspondence. If I said walk the dog and the person said outside, they don't have the same beginning, middle, and end. There is no point-to-point correspondence. You have to get your head around that fact. So we need to identify the verbal operant that lacks point-to-point correspondence. A, textual. What are we doing? Well, we're going to read exactly what's written. Okay, that's a textual. It should have point-to-point correspondence. B, an echoic, we just went over it. Echoic's the most obvious one because without point-to-point correspondence, it's just not an echoic. Okay, it's more than likely an interverbal. C, a transcription. We're writing exactly what we're hearing. So if I write what I hear, those two things have point-to-point correspondence, right? You're taking notes verbatim, that's point-to-point. A man doesn't have point-to-point. And why is that? Well, because a man is evoked by a motivating operation, not a verbal SD. So there's no verbal SD to have point-to-point correspondence with. When I mand, I'm just making a request based on motivation. I'm not making a request based on any verbal SD. I can't have point-to-point correspondence. So which of the following verbal operants like point-to-point? A man, because it's just irrelevant for a mand. A mand is evoked by NMO. At school, a student is learning how to use scissors by cutting out different letters and shapes. Teacher lets the student take the scissors home to work on cutting at their house. What is most likely to be false in this scenario? All right, this is a more difficult question, maybe a 6 or a 7, because there's a lot going on here. It's very applied, and in this case, it's vital that you do your work up front. You do your work on the question. If you rush to the answer choices here, you're going to get confused. So, what is most likely to be false? Start there. So, we're looking for something that's false. So, 3 of these are going to be true. At school, okay, students learning to use scissors. Great. The teacher lets the student take the scissors home to work on cutting at their house. Great idea, right? What do we first anticipate is going to happen? Well, now they're going to learn to cut at their house. That skill is going to start generalizing. It's also giving them more opportunities to learn to cut so we can strengthen that skill. So immediately we're thinking good things, okay? So if we look at A, the child's cutting behavior will be strengthened if they are reinforced at home. That seems like it would be true. If they cut with the scissors they use at school and we reinforce at home, ideally, or we expect the child's behavior to be strengthened. That seems to be true. B, generalization will occur across settings with those pair of scissors. Sure, if I'm learning to do something in one environment with stimuli, I take that stimuli to another environment and learn, that's aiding my generalization, right? With that stimuli alone. Because if we look at C, this will ensure that the child generalizes across every pair of scissors they might encounter. That doesn't seem to be true compared to the other ones. And why not? Because we're teaching the student how to cut, which is great, teaching them to generalize different people, different settings, but it's the same scissors. So what if they're using safety scissors or kid scissors, right? What happens when they encounter a giant pair of scissors, okay? Are we sure, are we ensuring that the child will generalize? No. So passing the scissors home is great. A better option might be giving a different type of scissor, right, to bring home. Maybe a different color, changing some aspect of that scissors. So not only are we getting A and B, but now we're starting to generalize across scissors as well. But as of right now, C seems to be false. And then D, the child's cutting behavior will maintain from home to school. Well, most likely, if they go home and they have scissors at home and they practice cutting at home, there's a good chance that behavior is going to maintain even when they go back to school. What's most likely to be false is that if we use the same pair of scissors, all of a sudden we can guarantee that they're going to generalize across every pair of scissors in the world. So what is most likely to be false is C. A post-reinforcement pause is most commonly associated with what group of reinforcement schedules? All right, kind of a rote question, but you can think about it and figure it out. Because what is the post-reinforcement pause? Well, it's a temporary stoppage in responding after receiving reinforcement. And why would that occur? Well, if you know when reinforcement's coming, you can plan for it. So if I know I have to respond 5 times to get reinforcement, I might do 5, get my reinforcement, relax a bit, right? I might just wait because I still know I have to do 5 anyway. Or if I know every 10 minutes I get reinforcement, and after 10 minutes I get my reinforcement, I wait. What's the hurry? I don't get reinforcement until 10 minutes later. Some kids will go as far as working, up until 1:59 and then stopping and then laughing because they know at 2, if they keep working, they'll get reinforcement. It's a game to them. Okay. That's why fixed schedules are good, but we always need to try to get to variable because fixed become very predictable. So that said, a post-reinforcement pause is most commonly associated with what? Well, typically fixed schedules. So A, fixed interval. Good. Is fixed interval our only fixed schedule? No. So let's keep looking. B, fixed interval, variable interval. We're not looking for variable schedules. C, fixed interval, fixed ratio, and variable interval. Again, not looking for variable schedules. D is what we're looking for. Post-reinforcement pause is most commonly associated with a fixed interval and sometimes a fixed ratio schedule. Awesome. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. Join if you'd like to support us further. When you do pass your BCBA exam, please let us know so we can include you in our Sunday shout out. Other than that, work hard, study hard. I will see you soon.